Well, GPLama just released a video where he had a rim failure just riding along. Now the situation was he was riding a gravel bike with a Zip Firecrest 303 rim, should I say, and he was riding on a gravel road. It was typical like your Strava Bianchi, with the right white stones, that limestone, very white looking road. And from what he showed in his video, a rock hit the edge of his rim here and it caused a split or a crack in the rim. Now, this is actually a good ending story that GPLama is putting forward because it was a Zip rim. He had filled out all the paperwork for the warranty, and when he contacted Zip, it was like, yep, that's not a problem, and they sent him a new wheel and he received it in just about a week. Now, you can make of that whatever you like, but his experience with Zip in this situation was very good. But my question is why did it fail? And this rim was actually a hookless rim. Now the failure motors I can see, and watching his video that he had on his YouTube channel, it looked like the rock had hit right on the edge of the hook that sticks up, like right here on the edge, and that's where the force and crack had propagated from down into the rim. So it looks like that. It's like when you get an axe, and you hit a piece of wood when you're chopping up your wood, and you cause a piece to travel, a splinter to travel down the grain of the wood, and it splits into two pieces. And of course with carbon, it has grain too, depending on which way you layer the fibers. But in this case, there was enough force for that to travel down the rim and cause a minor crack. And in this situation, because that's part of the air chamber, it was releasing the air, and he eventually had to put a tube in to get himself home. So my question is, would this have happened with other design types of rims, like with a clincher rim or a tubular rim? And I'm probably going to argue that it wouldn't have, and I will explain that right now. Let's just start with a clincher, because a clincher rim is really popular. People use these all the time. They're the standard. They can either be hookless or with a tube in. A lot of people still running tubes. A lot of people starting to adopt the tubeless, but they've got a hook on them like this. So instead of it just being a straight surface, the top is curled over or squared off, and then the bead fits in here. And what that does is that actually gives that a bit more strength or rigidity at the end of that piece that's sticking up out of the main skeletal of the rim. So that piece has got a much more rigid surface, and it's the same when we have like a piece of cardboard or something that's normally very flimsy and weak. As soon as we fold it into a square shape, it has a lot more strength, a lot more rigidity. The same thing happens with the end of your rim. But even though that's the case, the tire force, which is pushing out from the PSI on the tire, would still be working on the straight bit as it would with the hookless. So that wouldn't change. What we're looking at is a separate impact that's being applied to the top of the rim from an item like a rock that was on this road. So if we had something like this and we were trying to apply a force for it, where there's a box section, and we did the same thing and hit it with an axe, then it's going to be more resistance to that impact of that sharp force being applied at a pressure point, because you have a reinforced squared section, and it's probably got a bit more material in it, and it's wider as well to dissipate that force into that sectioned area of the clincher part of the rim. Now, if we move to a tubular, our tubular is a little bit different. That just has a rounded edge with a concave center, and the tire just sits in that slight concave. So that's the main skeleton part of the tire. So that even gives it more strength. And we know this because you can ride tubulars with the tyre flat and you can ride along and they don't fail. Even though we did see on some of the pave in the Paris-Roubaix, they did have some failures. But generally you can ride on a normal road when you couldn't do that with a clincher because those hooked sections would collapse, but with a tubular it can. So it can take a lot more impact. So I don't think a tubular would have failed in this situation, would have been able to dissipate that force that was being applied to it by the rock on that gravel road. So in conclusion, I think this is a identified weakness with hookless rims. And why I say that is because it has a uniform shape and it sticks up and it has nothing to give it any more rigidity. If you have, unfortunately, a rock hits the edge of it right here, it's going to act like a point of fracturing and that's going to travel through the rim. But with a clincher, if that happened, you've got a more rigid or stronger section, box section, at the end of that piece to resist that force. And of course, with a tubular, we've discussed that would have been a lot more resilient. And you do get tubulars in mountain bike or wider rims. They're available and they are used at the high-end competitiveness of mountain biking so they can run the tyres much, much lower pressure because they stick them on the rim, they don't come off. Whilst with the tubulars, they start burping and they can still come off the rim because eventually, in reality, it's still another type of clincher system, unless it's hookless, where it's still, you're using the rim part to hold it on. It's not a completely contained system that's just glued onto the rim. Now, I want you guys to let me know what you think down below. Do you think this is just a random event that happened, or do you think that yeah, this could be a weakness in the hookless rims being used in this application for gravel bikes? And let's face it, this is probably the big use area because they run at low pressures underneath 72 psi. And I would probably assume that GPLama was using the correct pressure because he's a very technical guy. He puts out some really fantastic technical content. So he would have been using those tires as advertised with the correct pressures. And so you would think that in this application, these hookless rims would be really good. But we probably didn't consider that the actual hookless bit sticking up could have a weakness to a rock hitting it right on the end, and that impact then causing a fracture that causes a propagation of that fracture through the rim. Well, anyway, guys, remember to smash that like button and also subscribe down below, especially if you're a Ninja watcher, because we want to take that Ninja badge off you. And we want you to make you a full-time subscriber so you don't miss any more cycling content in the future. And I will see you next vid. Cheers.
Yeah.